Welcome to the Twinkle Talks EYFS podcast. Working in the early years is busy, funny, messy, and exhausting. Join me, Shána, some of the Twinkle EYFS team, special guest speakers, and other early years practitioners as we talk honestly about our experiences. Whether you're listening for CPD, on your commute, or to help you relax, Twinkle EYFS will share everything you need to know about all things early years. Hi, Katie, we're back again. Did you miss me?
Always, Shána, always.
No, well, you might not after this one because I've got great game at the end for you. All right. I'm not competitive or anything.
Not at all. Not pre-warning me about how badly I'm going to lose.
I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm looking forward to the game at the end of this episode after we talk about early years and the creative arts subjects. This is number 4, I believe, in our subject leadership mini series. And we are looking at the creative subjects and how they might look in the early years. So I suppose first things first, what does that mean, creative arts? We've grouped another bunch of subjects together, haven't we?
We do our best to try and pigeonhole the subjects that don't want to be pigeonholed. So when we're talking about the creative side, it's really looking at those core foundation subjects, including your art and design and technology, which there's still a little bit of confusion between the two, but they are very different subjects. Art and design looking more at kind of that artistic skills and the typical what you'd expect with kind of your drawing, your painting, and developing those skills in the classroom. Design and technology with the making and the processes and things like your pneumatics. So they are very different subjects. But also under that creativity banner, we'll be looking at music, possibly the dance element of the PE curriculum. And I think it does bring us back to English as well, because we use speaking and listening and drama within our English provision. And that is expected within the national curriculum and encouraged to improve oracy skills at all levels. So yeah, lots of different things, those kind of the subjects that are often typically seen as those really enjoyable, allow children to experiment and find things that they're really passionate about and show excellence in learning in different ways that might not be recorded in books in the same way that maybe your English, maths, science and some other subjects are.
Oh, I'm going to just go back a little bit. This is my early years brain. What's a pneumatic? What did you say?
Pneumatics. So the one where you've got the balloon and it opens up mouths and things in little moving creatures. And so it's the processes. See, DT, design technology, kind of crosses over a little bit to science, kind of testing, different materials.
Engineering?
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of what we refer to as the STEM subject: science, technology, engineering, maths, that kind of thing. But there is that creative element to it. So, I mean, a typical one that you might look at into the foundation subject, particularly the foundation stage with the illiteracy side, is maybe your pop-up books or levers and links and things like that to really engage, really think about the audience. What do they want out of a product that you're creating? It's that ideation and the creativity where they can apply other skills. And last time we were talking about making those links between subjects, and DT really allows for that, for children to test out ideas, but then build it in with possibly stories that they're creating or puzzles they're trying to solve. So yeah, that's it. I thoroughly recommend going and having a look at the DT curriculum. Some really interesting things that they do at such a young age, really.
I have some of fondest memories of some of my DT lessons because we would use, like those axles and levers and things, and we'd make little go-karts, and then we'd, like you say, we'd use science to make the batteries and the circuits for the engine or the lights or something. And like you say, it would be based around a story or a character. We were building a vehicle for a superhero or something like that. And those are my fondest memories. I do want to have a little brag moment. We did woodwork in Key Stage 3, maybe possibly Key Stage 4 in secondary school. And I made the best mirror. Like, you could have sold it in the shops, Casey, okay? So it was shaped like Tigger, Winnie the Pooh's Tigger.
Yeah.
And he was bouncing on his tail. So his tail was the mirror handle. And he was holding his feet bouncing, and his tummy was the mirror.
Oh my goodness. But then look how kind of still fresh that memory is. And I think the creative arts lessons really open themselves up to those kind of sharp memories of things that are a bit different, embedding learning in different contexts and allowing children to express themselves in different ways, which, they may not be the best mathematician, or they may not be the person who can write the most or have the neatest handwriting, but they may be able to create the best Tigger mirror in the class. And it is developing things, designing, you making, you evaluating skills alongside that technical knowledge, which, as we discussed previously, very much is at the heart of the foundation stage, isn't it? Those transferable skills and the features of effective learning.
It really is, and I'm glad that you said that. It's like sort of starts in the foundational stage in early years, because when we were trying to think about what subjects we were going to talk about and then what areas they fit into the early years, my initial thought was, oh, it's easy, this one. This just fits into one area for early years. It fits into expressive arts and design. Done. That's one of our specific areas. And that area is split up into two subcategories. One, creating with materials.
Yep.
Two, being imaginative and expressive.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as you were talking about DT, as you were talking about dance and PE, as you were talking about drama, I was like, oh, there's even a crossover here. So, although you might initially think, oh, I'm a, art subject lead,
Mm-hmm.
it's very clear in the early years curriculum, expressive art and design. I'm going to go and look at an activity with the main focus of EAD, expressive arts and design. Don't fall into that trap, because, like you say, we could be doing a role play activity where they're acting out their favorite fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
That's drama. That's creative. That's creative arts, you know. Or they could be in the investigation area, looking at, B-bots, or looking at the materials and trying to make their own B-bot. Do you know B-bots?
Oh yes, yeah.
They're great, right?
Stage one for computing, and I know we're going to talk about computing
Yeah.
but again, they have to be creative, but with that logical side of it to
Hmm.
follow actions and use computational thinking. So actually, slightly in opposition to what we've had previously when discussing other areas of learning, creativity, I think, as if you lead one of the creative subjects as a subject lead, like DT or art or PE or music, I almost think that would be easy to see in lots of different areas within the foundation stage, because of the way that you plan and because of the way that you link all the areas of learning. You can spot those different elements in a much clearer way than you might be able to spot, for example, the literacy or the communication and language or the mathematical,
Mm.
because they are not as separate with creative subjects. You often do link them. You'd link your creating pop-up books or using levers and links in DT to the stories that you're writing or the plays that you're acting out in your literacy lessons. So yeah, I think it's interesting that for me, this was almost a little bit clearer to spot in the early years than maybe the core subjects.
That's really interesting, and that actually makes me really happy, because I was going to say as well, I feel like it's similar to what we were saying about science, is that the creative arts is so intrinsic
Mm,
in the early years curriculum, and just for children, because they are being creative and imaginative
mm,
all the time. They are working out how to do things constantly. So that could be from a scientific point of view, but it could also be from a creative point of view, you know? We're going to do some, I used to call it fizzy gym when I was in nursery. Every morning when they came in, they'd do their busy fingers to get them all settled. Then we'd do the carpet time and, see who's at nursery today and tell them what they can do today. And then right before we let them go and choose their continuous provision, they go and lead on their own activities and we support them. We'd do fizzy gym where I'd put some music on. And a lot of the times I might teach them some moves because, and we'll go into it in a minute, physical development is actually creative for us, like you for PE and dance, but for maybe more in-depth reasons because of their age. Um, but then other times I'd just see what they did.
yeah,
And it's so funny because you take it for granted when you say, go on, dance.
yeah,
The kids are like, what on earth does that mean? Like, no wonder some kids just stand there like, what are you doing? Like, what
yeah.
does the word dance mean? And then they get it and they feel like, oh, I can move however I'm feeling and I can do things in different ways. And then watching them be creative with that is the funniest thing and just the best thing.
and giving them that time and that opportunity to do it, because again, we've discussed before, the curriculum is so packed, and unfortunately things like that you would class under the creative arts, they do get pushed, because we know that we've got assessments, we've got phonics, we've got year six sats, we've got the multiplication tables check to get the children
Mm.
prepared for. So sometimes, unfortunately, yes, we want a broad and balanced curriculum, but the focus is on assessment. I'm not saying it should be, but it does
It
happen.
is, yeah.
um, and that creativity kind of goes a little bit, because you might only have that half an hour at the end of the day or an hour every fortnight to fit them in. But actually, when you kind of let that be a bit freer and you say, right, so our task for this particular unit is we are going to be using levers and links to create a moving picture book. For the first half an hour, just show me what you can do. Giving them that free reign is very much, again, what you guys really focus on to develop those interpersonal skills, those individual skills, and showcasing what they can do. But yeah, taking a bit of a step back sometimes is a really effective learning tool to go, well, what are our start points? What do they know? What can they do independently? And how can I push them and guide them further to progress and achieve?
Yeah, and I think another thing that's really quite useful is I think the creative art subjects are much easier for early years and primary and secondary educators to weave into different topics.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot more, like you say, easier to sort of cross over into different subject times or curriculum timetables or things like that. Something that stands out for me is in early years, a big creative topic for us perhaps would be something maybe like fairy tales,
Mm-hmm.
because we'd kind of hit all of those creative arts things, because we're storytelling first and foremost. So it's learning about that beginning, middle, and end,
Mm-hmm.
predictions, but also acting it out.
Yeah.
I know is it Key Stage 1 and 2 you do things like hot seating and things like that. We do an earlier version of that, I would say, where it's just we pretend to be the characters. And sometimes it's just the children are putting themselves in that position, like physically, and
Mm-hmm.
that's enough because they're understanding who's who, or holding a certain prop, or the development of that might be they're creating the props for their character. Another is that they're actually using their voice and changing their voice. So not just, acting out the character and saying the words, which is still great, but progression from that is when they use their voice and change it. So like when they're doing Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and they change their voice when they're narrating, so that the papa bear is big and gristly and sounds like this, and then the baby bear sounds like this, and that is a massive progression in early years. You're like, wow, you identified that there are different characters with different features, and you are able to control and be creative in your body and in your movements and in your voice to be able to express that. Or they'll one of my favorite things to do when we were doing fairy tales is we'd act it out at the beginning of, say, the topic or the week or things, something like that. And then we'd learn about it, we'd explore it together. Maybe they'd have a different idea for how the story ends. Maybe they changed one of the characters. Honestly, the kids came up with better ideas than I did. I barely needed to do planning for it. It was great. And then at the end of the week, we then did it again. And you should see the difference in like the performances. It was so good. And I was like, you've created your own stories here. You've thought of the props, the design, the set. We've added some music and dance. Oh, I'm sorry, Jack and the Beanstalk has a rapping giant. Nice one. Like, honestly, it's so much fun.
Absolutely. And I mean, that makes me want to go on teaching foundation stage.
Right?
Area I never moved into. But listening to you speak and looking at the DT curriculum, I know we keep coming back to DT, but because I think it's fitting quite nicely. And there's not often a lot of focus on DT because it's something people feel uncomfortable with, because you need resources, you need materials, you need
Hmm.
terminology, and be comfortable with it. The process when pupils are designing something is they design, they make, they evaluate, they develop that technical knowledge. That's what your children are doing across the course of the week. They're
All the
designing
time.
is they're making it, they're putting it together, they're evaluating it, making it better. And it's just so lovely to see how everything's linked. From a subject leads perspective, there's one thing, Shannon, it'd be interesting to see if this is an issue in the foundation stage, or whether it's not something you have to worry about to the same level, is that when you're doing cross curricular subjects and lessons and learning, that you have to ensure that the learning is not lost. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but
No,
so
you're right.
it's that focus on, if the objective is to select and use a range of tools and equipment to perform practical tasks. So again, coming back to that pop-up book that they might be making and creating and designing and wanting to create by the end of it, that particular objective can't be lost in the writing the story, or
Mhm.
really doing beautiful illustrations, because that isn't using a range of tools to create the practical tasks. It's kind of an on top of and aside. And that's where a lot of the issues come with the curriculum being very crowded and people not having enough time to do things properly. So that's where subjects like DT do fall to the wayside, because time is needed. And you get a lack of subject knowledge, people being a bit nervous about getting it wrong. So they kind of just miss it out, because it's easier to not do it than to do it wrong and be pulled for it. And from a subject leader perspective, that is something really we need to focus on, is making sure that the core subject objectives and are being covered and taught discreetly to allow progression and continuity, but balancing that with making things cross-curricular for engagement and that love of learning and for the timetable.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because this is something I had to unlearn, because
Mm,
I trained as a primary aged educator, so I could teach from ages 3 to 11.
mm,
My PGCE wasn't specifically for early years, so I was almost taught to be a primary teacher, but then
mm,
put in early years, and I got a big shock. And I think this was one of the biggest, because it's about that switch from process to outcome.
yeah.
And I think teaching DT and things like that really brings it home, because, and I think it's a societal thing as well. We've all been sort of brought up to think, right, there's a means to an end, there's a goal. I want to get a specific goal. I want to build this thing. I want to create this thing, when actually early years completely flips that on its head and goes, no, it does not matter what the end result is. It's about the process.
Mhm,
So in early years, we'll have a giant creative area or malleable area, or materials area. It will be stuffed with cardboard boxes, lids, levers, all sorts of things that even you wouldn't think would be there, and the children are able to access that all
mhm,
the time in continuous provision, and they build and construct and all of this stuff. And I have to say, even for children, we have to sort of teach them it doesn't matter what happens at the end.
mhm.
And that's interesting to see in a 3, 4, 5 year old, because even they think, I mean, if you think about the toys they get, Duplo, Lego, other things are available.
Yeah,
There's an end result,
yeah,
which is absolutely fine. Of course there is. But there is also joy and a lot of learning in how did you get there.
yeah.
So a lot of the time, I would also maybe get questions from other educators who weren't in early years, or even early years advisors and parents, when the children are just, you know, doing 15 million paintings a day.
Mhm,
Now, when I would step in is if they're doing the same thing every day. It's just a stroke of the pink paint. And it's great for the first couple of times. But if they're keeping on doing it just because they like painting, which is still great, but they're not actually moving that learning on, that's when you'd sort of be like, right, let's look at the processes here. Can you make different marks? Can you make different colors? Can you use different materials? Why paint? Can you make another one? Is that the same pink? Could you get a different shade? What else is pink that we've got? Um, and a lot of the time, you have to really stop yourself from saying, "Oh, what are you making?"
yeah,
No, I encourage people to not ask that question,
mhm,
because it's focusing the children on the end result.
yeah,
And we're trying to, like you said, I think that's the difficulty for national curriculum as well, is you get lost and you lose the objectives of practicing and using these materials, because, well, there has to be something at the end to show for it,
mhm,
because what's Ofsted going to say? We can't just make all this stuff. Why not? And that's a really hard thing to learn. And I have to say, early years we are blessed with that time, because we do things like continuous provision. But it is definitely something I had to really learn and unlearn myself. It doesn't matter what the painting looks like. A lot of the time we would do mark making activities. So every Friday we had Funky Fingers Friday, where we would practice our fine motor and gross motor skills to get ready for writing. And one of the groups, because it would rotate on a carousel every 3 weeks, one of the activities was a giant roll of paper on the floor, and all the children would have these giant big like chunky pens that would take up their whole hand, and we'd put some music on, and I'd be like, right, what's the vibe, how are we feeling with this music, let's move the pen to the music, let's see what comes out on the paper, and we'd just jam. And I mean, and I'd show them some different, maybe zigzags, maybe swirls, maybe this, maybe that, but it would be about exploring and experimenting and doing that. And the kids would look at it, and some of them would even start to try and draw like little flowers or things like that. I'm like, no, girl, no, no, dear child, just move. Let's just do some things, because they also were expecting to have a thing at the end. And then I'd show them and be like, wow, look at this cool piece of art we've made. And it was just a bunch of scribbles. But for me, I could see so clearly the definition, the pressure, the different types of marks, the sizes, the way they expressed it. We hung it up on the wall for everyone to see. And the kids at first were so confused because they were like, doesn't look like anything. And I'm like, are you joking? Have you seen? Look at that. That's a story. That's a story of what you've done. So it's about flipping that switch, I think.
Yeah, and still moving that learning on. That's what you're looking at in different processes and not being constrained. And I think it's the same kind of thing in national curriculum subjects. We want to move the learning on, but it has to be focused on a specific subject, a specific objective, and not too much.
Mm,
We can throw too much at it. So what are we developing? You weren't wanting them to create an end piece. You're wanting to develop that love and those motor skills. We're wanting to develop a specific objective within a specific subject. And it just can be really difficult. And the creative arts is definitely somewhere where it's a little bit trickier because of the time that's needed. And we don't have, infinite hours in the day. We don't have infinite days in the week. And you do want them to kind of produce something at the end, to be
of
proud,
course.
to show their skills, but at the same time enjoy their learning and move it on. Which, if you're rushing them through everything to just get it done, get it done, get it done, they're not making any progress. They're not getting better. They're just completing things.
Yeah, and literally sort of copying and pasting as well, isn't it? It's like I remember once I had when I was a student teacher, I was shadowing the early years teacher who was my mentor. She was also the early years lead and I think deputy head, and she was just showing me around the school. And I remember we went through a classroom. I think it was maybe year four, and they'd made DT volcanoes.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was like, oh my god, wow, look at all these volcanoes. And she said, yes, but they all look the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, like of course there's probably a lot of learning that has happened, but actually how much is it you do this, I show you do,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah. Not
the
actual
objectives.
creating something. Just,
Yeah,
it really is.
it's a tricky one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do want that creative freedom. And that's why we still, as a society and as particularly as a country, we put emphasis on these subjects and the importance of them. But then you're balancing that between assessments, expectations, timetables, practice understanding and confidence. And that's where
This is it.
community comes in. And again, time for all of those things. It's a fine balance.
It really is, and I do not envy the national curriculum educators, because you're battling a lot of things that I feel maybe early years has less of. We have more flexibility over our curriculum, our timetable, less assessment, so to speak, physically looking at, assessments. Ours is constantly ongoing through observations. You have to, do end of half term
Mhm.
for every topic kind of vibe. And you know what? Maybe that's what needs to happen.
Mhm.
Look, everyone just use the earliest timetable. We speak to someone in government and just be like, look, who created this for the national curriculum? It's not fair.
Yeah. And I
Come
think
on.
there is a shift towards more purposeful assessment, that it's not just we do it every half term, we do it in this way. And it's about
Mm,
driving, saying, using that term, driving learning forwards, not just a tick box exercise. And I do think there's a real change for that, but it comes with the freedom within the timetable, the freedom for schools to choose what works for their settings and for their pupils and for their staff, but also with that confidence. And that's where CPD comes into play. So lots of
mm.
battles on different fronts, but seeing the enjoyment and the passion that gets when children are experimenting with dance that they've never done before, or picking up an instrument or learning new things within music lessons, it's it just kind of gets, as a teacher, it gets you in a different way that potentially, completing a page of problems does in maths sometimes. It's really
Mhm.
different sides of children coming out through these subjects.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I love as well. We having, that balanced and varied curriculum. It's like you get to see all parts of the child and, where others may feel anxious, others thrive
Yes,
in other
absolutely.
areas, and it's great to give everyone that opportunity.
Yeah,
One thing I think early years struggles with is people don't really know what gross and fine motor skills is,
yeah,
and like, unless you're in the early years, and I feel like this might often be the similar frustration for your PE teachers. This, some schools might have a designated PE teacher rather than, um, yeah, teachers being, taking the lessons, but it's so important. I can't tell you, like, physical development is a prime area for early years. And there is a reason we've got gross motor and fine motor is like, the main three: communication and language, personal, social, and emotional development, physical development. It is so important. So for us, it's a daily thing. I mean, the kids are running around everywhere. They're exploring. They're going up high. They're going down low. We've got all sorts, like in the outside area. There's everything is a movement, but then we'll always do things like dance or
yeah.
for your gross motor. We'll do a lot of crossing the midline. Have you
Mhm.
heard that?
No, and I'm thinking from, for the subject leaders who may never have ventured down into early years, can you give us a definition of the difference? You're talking about your fine and your gross.
Ah. Gross motor is to do with the larger parts of your body, the larger movement. So are they able to move their arms in a big circle?
Yeah.
Are they able to move their shoulders? Are they able to, it's the bigger movements. Are they able to move their legs and their feet? So it's the big movements that deal with sort of your extremities.
Mhm.
Then your fine motor is much more detailed.
Yeah.
So another thing about gross motor, which you wouldn't think is related to fine motor, but it is, it's about your core.
Right.
If you don't have a good core, you're probably not going to be a very good writer.
Mhm.
Weird, right?
Mm.
So we look at things about the children. Are they able to move their hips? Are they able to, control their spine and their posture? Are they able to rotate their abdomen well? All that kind of stuff. Neck movements, shoulder movements, arm movements, all of that, um, for gross motor, which is important for physical activity PE as well. But it also then ties into fine motor because then you get into the real complex detail movements of your arm ready for writing.
Yeah.
So it will go all the way from your neck and your shoulders, all the articulating joints in there, to your elbow, and also the circulation, because the shoulders are rolling socket joint, to the different kinds of joints in your wrist as well, being able to articulate the movements in your wrist, dexterity to
Mm.
be able to not only have strength in your fingers and your hand and the different parts of your hand and your elbow strength, your shoulder strength, your arm strength, but also are they able to move different fingers and different parts of their fingers in isolation
Yeah.
together in different patterns. It's actually a lot more complicated than people think. And we do loads of things. The best thing is Play-Doh, modeling dough. Dough disco was my favorite thing ever. Modeling dough is the best because it gets all of that, the pinching skills, the articulation, the dexterity, the isolation, and it works all of the movements. So it is all physical development, but one is larger scale extremity movements and core muscles
Mhm.
and core strength. Fine motor is all the detailed, articulated movements that should support you in a writing and mark making, of course.
And that feeds in to handwriting, the way that handwriting is taught. We
Yep,
talk about kind of that, having that good posture and the way that you sit, and that links back to your core, so it flows on very much. And we've touched on PE. You think about your catching skills, your throwing skills, kind of developing kind of good posture, good movements, graceful movements. It all just flows in, doesn't it, into those different
it
creative.
does. And that's where crossing the midline comes from. So I remember doing a parent workshop actually, to because we did a lot of it in early years, and then I was like, let's teach the parents because so we're doing this fizzy gym stuff at school and at nursery. Let's, the parents are probably thinking, what on earth are they doing?
Mm.
But we're doing a lot of crossing the midline essentially means using both sides of your body at the same time. So it could be putting your right hand on your left knee,
Yep.
your left hand on your right knee, your left hand on your right ear, like things like that. You're physically crossing the midline of your body,
Right.
and that's to do with the different sides of your brain. So your left and your right brain, they work in isolation initially, but what we want to do is strengthen the muscle, as it were, to get both sides of the brain and the body working together and crossing over. So when we have that little game where it's like, rub your tummy and pat your head.
Yeah, yeah.
It's things like that that you do for older children, and you can feel it, can't you? You can feel your brain go.
What am I doing?
But yeah, but that's kind of where we start for kids, and it's proven, in terms of development, it's making those connections, just like
Mm.
not just physically, but also mentally, and it's getting their core, their balance, but also their mental processes are improved with it as well, and that's gross motor.
Mm. It's so interesting. There's so much that goes behind it, and just really developing. I know we feel like we keep coming back to the same thing, but really well-rounded learners that all of these different subjects create and open up the world to our children and what they will go on to achieve. And that very much starts in all of these fine and minute areas of learning in the foundation stage.
Yeah, it really does, and I feel like this one got a little bit deeper than I was expecting. I was like, oh yeah, creative arts is going to be easy, and then we're like, oh no, it's real deep. Yeah, so I'm like, "Oh, okay, actually, yeah, this is a lot for subject leaders to handle and to manage." What can we do, Katie, as early as practitioners? What can we do to support creative arts subject leaders?
I think, again, pointing it out, making it really explicit, which is a little bit easier in these particular subjects as we've broached, but having those conversations, like most people using inference skills and kind of just general knowledge will know what motor skills are, but having that conversation about how you develop those different elements, the fine and the gross motor, will allow students to see how it transfers into their subject and what they can do when they're developing their curriculum to continue that journey. So, for example, like we said, keep coming back to DT, when it's talking about using different tools and equipment, how might that look when you're developing fine motor practices in foundation stage? What does that transfer into year one? How does that develop into year two? What are we looking for progress? And like we're saying, looking at those objectives in isolation. So what is really good effective learning for that in year one? And then how does it build into year two? And then as they
Mm,
stage two, how does that develop and how are they challenged? It's not just the same thing, but thicker card or bigger pieces of paper. It's really making progress in that particular objective. Because what you'll find is a lot of these creative subjects, there aren't many objectives. It's not like English and maths where it's really, really prescriptive and broken down. It's quite general, so it's open to interpretation, but you still want to see that progress and that development. So when subject leads are creating their subject offer and designing their curriculum, really start that in foundation stage. What do they do? What would you expect children to be coming out at being able to achieve from foundation stage, and how that will progress? I think that'd be extremely helpful, because often these subjects are your specialist subjects where specialist knowledge is needed, and in primary school settings that just doesn't happen very often. You don't often get specialized art teachers teaching in primary school. It can happen, and it does happen. People might be really passionate about the subject, but we're not talking secondary level. We're not talking where people have done a degree, for example, in these particular subjects. So keeping that learning holistic and really working as a team to look at what good progress looks like right from the very bottom, right to the very end, whether that be, infant, junior, middle school, whatever it is in your particular setting. I think that's really key to getting that learning embedded and effective.
yeah, I think the Twinkle Early Years team and the subject leads team are working on some really nice resources and packs to help get those conversations started. So I'll pop the link in the episode description so that people can just use that and, like you say, go and speak to their subject leaders and be like, look, this is how it looks. This is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of vibe. So yeah, that's good to know.
Always happy to help.
Fantastic. Moving on.
I'm going to say, is now the time? It's now.
Now is the time to challenge you. Okay, we've done lots of learning. We've been educating our listeners. Now, let's educate each other, aka let's get Shána competitive and want to win a game.
This is payback for the science questions last time.
It's so payback. Like, what was that, Frankensteinium or something? I can't even remember. I was like, what? The periodic table. So you brought it upon yourself. We're going to play some games. I'm going to pick a game. You're going to pick a game to do with the creative arts, and we'll see what happens. Shall I go first?
You're going to be really mean. Can we start with nice, easy ones with me?
All right. No, go on then. Go on then.
I know that your initial game when you've got people on the podcast just for one episode is the Would You Rather. So I switched it a little bit. And did the this or that.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice and
I'm
easy.
ready.
Open it, getting to know Shána a little bit more.
I mean, do you really want to? Okay. I'm a woman of mystery. What are you doing to me?
Opening up that Pandora's box here. This or that, Shána. Now you've done a little bit of subject leadership understanding. Core subjects, English, math, science, or the foundation subjects like.
Oh, it's interesting actually, because before I would have been like creative, easy, but it is not easy being a creative arts subject lead. I feel like there's a lot more guidance on the core.
Yes.
A lot more guidance. And I feel for you, national curriculumers. We've got to think of some nickname. NCers. I'm going to call you NCers. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. But then again, your core subjects, Ofsted, like you are guaranteed to be. There's a lot more pressure, I think, on the core subjects. Okay, I'm going to go with creative.
Oh, very good. I was a English lead for a long time, so I like the guidance. I'm a girl who likes process. I like to follow instructions, but I like the element of creativity that was within English and that passion for reading. So I'm a big. I was English.
I love that.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, easy. Dogs. Like, don't even need to think about it because I'm allergic to cats, Gil.
Oh well,
that's an easy one.
Yeah.
Dogs are my life. I want a pack of dogs. I don't just want one dog. I'm going to have lots of them. You have dogs?
No, my husband is allergic to anything with fur, so we don't eat goldfish.
You don't even have goldfish. Hang on, what goldfish has got fur? What's in your water, Katie? What is going? I think you might need to call the water company. There's something going on in your water. Furry goldfish.
Don't even risk it. Just don't risk it. What about writing or speaking?
Oh, ooh. Okay, it depends, I think. I think writing and speaking are a form of therapy for me. If that makes any sense. I love speaking. I think is more natural, especially with the children. I love, you get it's more personal.
Yeah, it is.
But then writing is really therapeutic in sort of getting it down and like,
Yeah.
Speaking.
Yeah.
I'm a host of a podcast. How could I not pick speaking?
That would have been my guess for you. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm more of a writer. I do enjoy notes. I'm still working online. I still have thousands of notepads. I do like. I love to cross off. And
yes.
To finish it off, which I thought was really, really suitable for the foundation stage, indoor learning or outdoor learning?
Outdoor.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Girl, I want a farm. Like, I've got a. Have you not listened to this podcast? How much stuff am I growing? I got strawberries that just bloomed today. Get me outside. As soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm like, right, coffee, pajamas, let's go straight outside. The kids, I was like, we can do this outside. I loved spring, summer because everything, we did phonics outside, we did reading outside, we did maths outside, we did everything outside. I was like, let's get out. It's stuffy in here. No, let's get out. Yeah. Love the outdoors.
Signing up for the outdoor provision.
Literally, I got my wellies, I got my waterproof. Let's go.
Yeah, on it. Love it.
Not you. Is that not you?
No, I get cold very easily. I like a joy. Yeah, I'll be on duty, but no, indoor playing every day.
Oh no, wet play honestly ruined my day. When I ever had to do wet play, I was like, no.
Not for you. Right, come on, I'm ready for this this game that you won't even tell me what.
I'm so excited for this. As soon as I knew we were doing this episode, I was like, I've got the best game for you. Okay, so we're talking about creative arts, and I thought, what's the stereotypical thing that you think, people might think early years do? Learn the colours. Oh, the rainbow song. Oh, yeah, how cute. No.
Okay.
Oh, we learned a spectrum of colours, girl. So my game is I'm going to give you a colour name, and you got to tell me what you think it looks like. What hue, where, what you think. You ready?
It's on the rainbow. Is that what you're saying?
To be confirmed. It's a colour that exists on the spectrum. What spectrum, whether it's infrared or ultra, I don't know.
I never coordinated art. I don't know colour.
We shall see. All right. So, okay, I'll gradually get harder. We'll start off easy-ish. Okay, are you ready?
Let's go for ish.
Yeah. Okay. Oh no, I will. I'll start with this one. Puce. What kind of color do you think puce is?
Isn't it green? Isn't it when people are feeling sick? You see, you've gone, or is it could be red actually? I feel
Wrong.
is a colour that skin can go for a reason. I'm gonna go red, like and you turn in puce. Is that right? No,
No, so far from the truth. It's wrong. Puce is a mix of purple and brown.
so nearly like red and frustrated. When saying you can
No,
no,
no, nothing like green, nothing like red. Purple and brown. It's almost like a dullish, muddy pink.
I'm sure
Uh,
there have been a child that's turned that when they can't go out and play with the.
oh, I have seen a puce child several times, several, but not. They weren't green or they weren't red. All right, that was a good start. There you go. That's puce. Okay. Oh. Okay, glaucus. I don't even know if I'm saying it right,
I think
but
I made it up.
I someone has.
Yeah.
Glaucus.
Being logical, glow sounds a little bit like glow, so I'm gonna go kind of yellow gold vibes.
Oh, wrong. Complete opposite. Complete opposite. Yeah. It could be me though. I will spell it out for the listeners. Glaucous. So it could be glaucus.
Mm.
I don't know. Apparently, it's a softer blue color, similar to periwinkle, but with less purple. Don't you know, Katie? Don't you know? Have you not used glaucus in an art lesson before?
Let's get to B&Q and get the walls in there.
Oh my god, can you imagine if some of our listeners have got these colours? Oh my god, if you do, please write in and send me pictures, please. That would be the funniest thing. All right, okay. Right, let's see if we can do like a mega hard one.
Oh,
Oh, there's just so many. Okay. What about gamboge or gamboge? Gamboge?
blue, we've done a red. I'm gonna go green just because we've not done it yet.
You fell for my trick. No. You hate me so much right now. It's great. Uh, Gamboge or Gamboga, I'm going to spell it again. Gamboge is a yellow or yellow orange color.
So my thinking for the
It's
last one would have applied here.
that's why I got you. I was like, particularly, it's named after the yellow color of gum resin that comes out from a tree native to Cambodia. Don't you know?
Well, now I do. Comes up in the next quiz in the local pub, I'm gonna be all over it.
I was just about to say, look, pub quizzes, I
Mm.
got you. I got you. But apparently, it's like, like a saffrony kind of color.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Think of it like that. And it's actually a really traditional dye color for Buddhist monks' robes.
Again,
So,
more facts. I'm storing
look,
in my bank.
this is what I'm saying. Richard of York gave battle in vain, move aside. Gamboge and ver, ver,
What's that one, Shána?
glaucus,
That one you've got
Mm.
all.
Always. I've got it right now. Yeah. I'll just leave you with this fun fact. There is a colour named after an ABBA song. Can you guess which one it is?
I feel like I should know, but no, go.
Xanadu.
This Xanadu is a colour. What colour is it?
Green. Apparently it's the grey-green colour. But yeah, so Xanadu. Let's have a bit of Xanadu on you all, love. Let me know. It's in trend this season, according to my 3-year-olds in the nursery. Yeah. What a great way to end this episode. I'm rather chuffed.
Yeah. It's going to get me
Thanks.
down to the to B&Q to see what I can find.
And to the pub quiz. Do you know what I'm saying? Write these down.
That
You
is
could be winning.
out B&Q and straight to the pub quiz.
What a night. That is a cracking day out, that is. That's a good look, I ain't gonna lie. I think I might ask my partner if we can do that this weekend. We'll see. But until then, thank goodness we've already got one episode left in this series. I think we've gone a bit delirious by the end of it.
Paint fumes, clearly.
It's the Xanadu up my nose. It's just got to me. Thank you for that. I have learned lots about the national curriculum and the creative arts subjects. Thank you. Next episode is the final installment of this mini series, The Outliers, basically the ones we couldn't group in. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
We got it. This is it. So I'll go thinking of another game for that one.
Just you wait.
Oh, challenge accepted. All right. Well, until that time then, my love, I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Have a good night.
Bye. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would like to join in or would like to know more, then come and find us on our social media sites. We have a Facebook page, Facebook groups, an Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube. All the links of where to find us will be in our podcast description. Come and join the conversation. And whatever you're doing today, I hope you have a great day.